This week on FYI, the latest on the war in Ukraine and those trying to escape the fighting.
And I'll be meeting Ukrainian refugees who have arrived here in the UK and investigating why the war could lead to a food crisis for all of us.
This is FYI, your weekly news show. And as the war continues in Ukraine, we've been hearing a lot about the city of Mariupol. But what is actually going on there? Well, we've been investigating. Mariupol was one of the first cities to be attacked by the Russian army back in February, when President Putin ordered the invasion of Ukraine. The Ukrainian army fought back, but after almost 2 months of fighting and bombing, the Russian army took control of Mariupol. And now the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, says the city has been completely destroyed. Russia's actions in Mariupol have been condemned by world leaders for attacking places like hospitals and buildings where civilians have been taking shelter. Finally, Russia agreed to a plan so civilians could be evacuated from the city to safety. Families who were taking shelter in a steel factory with very little food and water were taken to neighbouring towns and villages. It is thought that around 100,000 people are still in Mariupol. Millions of Ukrainians have fled to neighbouring countries since the war began, but our government has been criticised for being too slow to let Ukrainian refugees into Britain. Scarlett's with a family who've just arrived. Hi, Scarlett.
Hi Braden, up to 7,000 refugees have signed up to come and live here in Taunton, but there's nowhere near that number here yet.
It may not be home, but more and more Ukrainian refugees are starting a new life in British towns like this one.
I'm about to meet Evelina and her family to see how they're settling in.
England is a very beautiful country and people very kind. Yeah, we feel very safe.
What was the journey from Ukraine to the UK like?
It's a very long road. When we go to the France, yeah, we need to wait for visa like 1 week.
The UK government promised to give hundreds of thousands of people shelter in this country, with lots of families like Julie offering a place to stay in their homes.
So how did you all meet?
Well, I posted on Facebook that we were willing to host a family, and then Olga happened to go onto Facebook about 15 minutes later.
Yeah.
And it was that quick.
The same day we go from Ukraine.
But you left the same day?
Yeah.
Really?
Reaching the UK is not just about being safe and having a place to stay. Evelina's brother and sister have already started school.
They very like it, very happy to see school.
Yeah.
They find friends.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of criticism of the British government that the rules can make it a long and difficult process for Ukrainians to get into the UK. And there are still tens of thousands of people waiting to hear if they'll be allowed into the country.
Okay, so this room?
Yeah.
Wow, it's decorated so nicely.
Arthur and his family are all set up to welcome Ukrainian refugees into their home. But after connecting with a family over a month ago, they're still waiting for them to arrive.
And then in here?
More clothes.
There's a coat and some shoes. Yeah. You've got everything they're going to need, haven't you?
Yeah.
The family that Arthur hopes will move in are stuck in temporary accommodation in Ukraine, waiting to hear if the UK authorities will let them in.
Why did you want to take in a family?
Because I thought we could help them a lot, and also if we were in their shoes, like, we wouldn't want to be in Ukraine, would we?
You know, you'd want your help if you were them, so it's really great that you're opening your home to them.
Hello, what would you like for us?
So I see that your brother's in here having loads of fun.
But as we were filming, news reached Arthur that the family had finally got their visas to come live in the UK.
What are you looking forward to the most?
Having someone else in the house would be more fun, because it's just like me and my little brother.
Thanks, Scarlett. Good to end on some positive news there. And on FYI, we always like to hear what you think on the big issues. So I headed to West Acre Middle School to meet their FYI News Club members to get their shout on the war in Ukraine. So we know about the terrible situations that are going on in Ukraine at the moment, but how does that make you guys feel, and how are you coping with them feelings?
Having family close to Ukraine and sharing a border with Belarus. It's quite scary knowing that they could be in danger, but I try to take time to call them every day and check how they are and how they're feeling.
So what do you think, schools and children can do to welcome in new refugees?
I think that we should welcome them with open arms and give them supplies, as in Ukraine they might struggle with supplies.
In school, we collect food for food banks. We could do the same, a similar thing for people in Ukraine.
Learning the Ukrainian language a lesson, so then if there were to be a Ukrainian refugee who got transported here, then he would feel more welcome.
So compared to other European countries, do you think that our country, the UK, is doing enough to help Ukrainian refugees?
So I think we are doing enough, but other countries have the available space to do more.
I think we're doing a good job, but I think we could invite more refugees in.
So for people who are still in Ukraine, what do you think we could do to support them?
There are lots of places that we can donate stuff to them, like food, blankets, and even toys for children to make them feel safe so that they're not so scared.
We could try writing letters to send to Ukrainian children to try and help them and make them feel better about what's happening.
Well, thank you very much, guys. That was, really, really good answers there. And thank you for joining me. It was ace. If you want to have your shout on FYI, then why not get your teacher to set up an FYI news club at your school, or just do it with your mates. Just head to our webpage, first.news/FYI. Members are given free resources to set up their own club to watch and discuss the programme. And you could even get the chance to report on your own stories here on FYI.
One of the big issues we've been looking into on FYI is why there's a world food crisis and how the war in Ukraine affects that. Don't get it? Don't worry. Here's more info for you.
Most of us take it for granted that when we're hungry, all we need to do is open the fridge. Okay, well, if it's like this one, then all we need to do is pop to the supermarket. But imagine for a moment that there is no supermarket, and the crops that your family relies on have failed. For more than 768 million people around the world, finding enough food to eat is a real problem, and it's a crisis that seems to be getting worse. So why are so many people going hungry? Well, I've been looking into this, and I found out that there are 3 main reasons why food is in short supply. The first is conflict. In countries where there is fighting and tension, it can be really difficult to get hold of fresh and healthy food, and people often have to keep moving to escape the violence. In the case of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, we rely on both of those countries for a lot of our wheat and barley. So experts are warning the conflict could create a global shortage. Then there's poverty. The cost of food has been going up, and not all families can afford to feed themselves properly. And I'm not just talking about developing countries. In the UK, a record number of families have had to rely on food banks. And finally, there's extreme weather caused by the climate crisis, like floods and droughts. This can cause crops to be wiped out. Sometimes, all 3 of these things can happen at once. And that's what's happened in some of the worst affected countries, with the situation really bad in Afghanistan, Yemen, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and South Sudan. You may have seen upsetting pictures on the news from countries where people don't have enough food to eat and the water isn't clean enough to drink. Sadly, according to the United Nations, more than 25,000 people die every day because of hunger, including 10,000 children. So what about the future? Can we solve this problem? Well, to answer that, I'm going to need an expert. And I'm joined by Professor Guy Poppy from the University of Southampton. Hello, Professor Poppy.
Hi, Scarlett.
Hi there. So, will there be enough food to go around in the future?
That's a very interesting question, Scarlett. We know that there will be an extra 2 billion people on the planet by 2050, and those 2 billion people will all need the right food and do that without harming the environment too much. So it's going to be difficult.
But there are some solutions, right?
Yes, there are. The first is we currently throw away 1/3 of all the food that we buy. And if we can make sure that we eat the food we buy, trying to not throw away too much food, that could have a big impact. Secondly, we can use technology. Drones can enable us to plant things in the best place possible so that we can produce more food from the same amount of land. It's really important that we don't expand into things like rainforests or nature reserves, and we stick to farming on the land that's already farmed. And thirdly, we can change our diets. Most experts around the world think that we eat probably too much meat and too much dairy, and meat and dairy consume a lot of the world's resources. What is recommended is that we eat more fruit and vegetables, and we eat more nuts and peas, and that will provide us with a healthy diet, and by growing more of those, we'll have a healthier environment too.
Well, thank you for telling us about that.
Thank you, Scarlett.
So there is hope for the future, but things will need to change. The important thing is we can all play our part right now by supporting charities who are helping to feed people who are going hungry, and by trying to cut out the amount of food we throw away. We're also being asked to try and grow our own food at home. Not bad.
The world can be a complicated place, can't it? So for more explainers on big issues like racism, bullying, and the war in Ukraine, just head to our webpage, first.news/FYI.
Nice one, Scarlett. Now, are your fake news spotting skills up to scratch? Apparently, a face mask for cows has won an Environmental Design Award from Prince Charles. As cows burp methane, a gas that contributes to global warming, the mask is supposed to cut down their emissions and so will hopefully slow down climate change. But is that true? I'll let you know later. Now for a bit of Hollywood. In a sec, I'll be chatting to the stars of the new movie, Turning Red. If you haven't seen it yet, Turning Red is all about becoming a teenager and all the emotions that go with it. But when 13-year-old Mei Lin gets a bit over-emotional, she turns into a red panda. All right.
Is everything okay? I'm a gross red monster!
So I'm now joined by Sandra Oh and Rosalie Chang. Hi guys, how are you?
We're great.
Great, thank you.
So Rosalie, you obviously play Mei Lin, and she obviously finds it quite difficult to control her emotions. But do you think being loud and open about your feelings can sometimes be a good thing?
Absolutely. Throughout the film, Mei gets these new emotions and she thinks it's bad, but she tries to hide it because she's ashamed because that's her red panda side. But I think it's okay to have these emotions. It's natural.
And it's also not like bad emotions. I think ultimately, when you have big emotions and highs and lows, you just, especially when it's starting to happen to you for the very first time, you will eventually learn how to try and manage it. Just be kind to yourself about them.
My whole life I've been perfect little Mei Mei. But maybe I like this new me.
Now, did you guys take any messages away from this film?
Everyone takes away their own message from this film. The red panda can represent so many different things. For me personally, it represents change and messiness, because everyone has a messy side.
Yeah, definitely. Now, for me, throughout the whole film, I thought that the message was really just being yourself.
Yeah, being yourself. Yeah. You know, for me, I'd say, you know, a lot of us, especially during this time, if you happen to be close, or even if you don't have such a close relationship with your parents, this feeling of like not being enough or not being able to kind of please them, I think that's really real. It's just a natural thing that happens. For me, as someone who is of a mom's age, it's to say, don't be scared about disappointing your parents. And for parents, you know, if they're watching it, it's like, just give your child a little bit of space to, as you said, what really meant to you, to be yourself.
I'm a freak. We love you, Mei.
You're our girl.
Whoa. You're you.
Well, thank you so much for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Now, did you guys spot this week's fake news or fact? Well, the face mask designed for burping cows is fact. It cuts down the methane gas in the cow's belches, which is a gas that contributes towards global warming. It's hoped that ideas like this could help slow down climate change. For more details on how to spot fake news, just head to our webpage. Well, that's it from us. See you next week.